best of 5 finals of, I believe, perhaps the North American Open Cup. This could be North America or Korean Open Cup, to be honest, because the Koreans basically always get to the finals of both of those. So I forget which one, but it's one of those. We do have 2 Korean players playing, so ultimately it's happening on the Korean server. They don't unnecessarily play in North America, even if it was North American Open Cup. And it is the patch, which is by far the most important attribute of this, is that we are watching the new patch and Dark mess up in action. I didn't expect that. So in the top bottom left, we have the blue Zerg Dark, and in the top right, it is Byun. So just a reminder not to spoil anything if you do know who wins this one, since it is not new, it's replays. We want to get a good look at what's happening with the patch. So, lovely ESL said this week all of the Open Cups are going to be on a PTR emulator, basically, a mod. And I do know that even though Europe didn't have a Game Hearts addition to the mod, apparently either Korea or North American did. So, I was a little bamboozled earlier today when I cast another series about whether or not they're actually playing on the patch. We're going to go ahead and assume that they did remember to add the mod that gives them the patch for the grand final. Certainly most of the casters would remind them. So we should be on the new patch. We should see some of the things in action. Some of the biggest differences, like literally physical, graphical differences, are going to be in the ultra size. Probably the biggest one, to be honest. And then I'll point out the other patch differences, small or large. But to be honest, so far, they've been pretty small. This is my 6th series cast in the patch, and I have not noticed any considerable difference, which is kind of the goal of the patch. I think some of the bigger changes revolve around the Raven, so if I was casting TVT, which unfortunately I haven't been able to get, that might be different, but as far as PVT, TVZ, PVZ, it's not really been all that different. So we'll see if that changes in this best of 5 finals. Obviously, we were looking at Byun going for a forward-placed 2-racks opener, so not proxy, just forward-placed. He does have the wall off now complete. Dark was able to see this and knows that it is most likely going to be 3 Reapers into Marines. That is the most common opener. I want to say prior to this becoming popular again, because it feels like it really is popular again in the last month or two, I want to say that there were some pairings that went up to a 4th and 5th Reaper, but basically I haven't seen that since whenever the last time, I don't know, E-Thermal was competing. So, capping out at 3, but continuing to add on barracks behind this. You know, there is a command center on the way, something that Dark, again, can see, but he doesn't know about the 4th and 5th barracks. So, that could be really problematic. You know, Byun is probably not expecting big things from the Reapers, but more so is expecting it to take up Dark's time. Now, Dark's a good Zerg player, unlike me today earlier, and as such isn't really going to be messing up a whole lot on the macro aspect, but might, just because he does have to deal with the Reapers, can't just go willy-nilly on them, he might miss some crucial scouting opportunities that would not be missed in a more normal game. It's possible. Byun is going to have a lot of buy on the ground, the ability to stim as well. He's going to have to be careful with when he chooses to stim. And this turns into a pseudo-contain. The Zerg player, once they figure this out, and they will eventually, they'll see the Marines coming, can't over-defend, but they cannot under-defend either. And that is really tricky for Zerg players. It's kind of the best benefit of this style of play. Zerg players were facing this a decent amount of time, again, months ago at this point. They had trouble, and then apparently it just disappeared off the face of the earth. It got brought back, and once again they have a little bit of trouble, but at some point, when they were facing it, they were figuring it out. But, you know, first and foremost, they gotta actually figure out that that is what's on the way. Now, Dark sees that it is going to be... Okay, I was so confused. Dark does see that it's going to be obviously fast in a stim. The factory units have not made an appearance at all, and they really shouldn't, but it's the sheer amount of Marines. If this went into a 2-1-1, okay, he's expecting 2 medevacs to appear in a couple of seconds. If it goes into any type of factory unit, that'd actually be kind of weird, like he's just building tanks from here on out. And then maybe he's building them to do a bit of a later regular ground push. But this is hitting hard and fast with a lot of early game units. And apparently it's going to come with an SCV pool, which is a new ingredient to this particular recipe. It might work. Generally, SCV pools suck against Zerg players because Banelings are in the matchup and are so damn good against them. It doesn't really help at all, right? They still kill everything that comes at them, both SCVs and Marines. And if someone is purely depending on Queen Ling, it's a very different story. The SCVs will do their job in body blocking. Now, Dark knows how committed this is, so he can buy a lot of time, even give up a hatchery need be, but he's going to be forced to take the engagement. Decides to here. Not really the best surround, to be honest. The Lings, nor the drones, really got a good surround there. And the Queens aren't going to kill everything by their lonesome, unfortunately, as much as they would love to be that overpowered. They're not that overpowered. They're going to be gunned down, especially with reinforcements on the way. A couple of more Queens taking their losses here as expected, and Overlord goes down as well. Dark is nowhere near supply blocked, but he is about to be really sorely inject blocked, larva blocked. So he's not been injecting, he's been pulling his Queens, and of course his Hatchery's about to die. So building the amount of Lings necessary to beat this particular set of Marines, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. So he tries to interrupt the reinforcements, but it's a bit too late. Byun was kind of on to that possibility, collected more reinforcements for sending them out, and this seems like a done deal to me. Total amount of patch things that affected this game, that actually affected this game, 0. Total patch things that were technically in this game, but didn't really affect anything, like 2 or 3. So the creep was a little bit less on the vision, and it spread a little bit slower, and the hatcheries built creep a little bit faster. Like that's really all we saw there. So, yay, patch! Anyways, that's gonna happen when you have the lack of Banelings. Byun playing on basically a Zerg's greed to get that done. But you could see that even without Banelings, if Dark can be able to buy a little bit more time, being able to run away a little bit more and also get a better surround, give him 10, 16 more Lings and a total surround, then he actually might take care of that. But he didn't. So, GG. Byun with a kind of surprising start to the series, really going off that surprise factor, gets the first punch in this best of 5. Nice and quick into game number 2. In the top left, we have Dark now down a game. Bottom right, it is Byun. Byun going for a 2 barracks forward aggressive start. Following up with 2 more barracks, turning into a 4 racks SCV pool. Really taking advantage of, again, the Zerg's greed. So, people in chat noting that it's often common not to get Banelings against, for instance, a 2-1-1, which was certainly something that it could have gone into, and it's totally right. But one of the reasons you don't do that, right, the reason you don't want to do that is kind of basically greed. Proper greed, because you have to be greedy in StarCraft in some aspects, just to be able to play the rest of the game fairly well. But nonetheless, it is dangerous. So Byun really, with the gotcha build, it's gonna open up with the same setup. 2 racks in the forward position. I'd be surprised if they did the exact same follow-up, though. I'm gonna go ahead and bet 5 imaginary dollars that it's gonna go into actually a 2-1-1 with a faster 3rd command center on the backside as well, because it's Moondance. So Moondance is a short map, which might support the theory that it's gonna be one of those Marine pushes and possibly SCV all in. And if it was the first map, or he hadn't already done it on another map, I absolutely think that is the case. But it is it's already been done, so I'm not sure it's going to do that. So we have Dark going for pool first. I was going to say this might have been because he was expecting a 2-rex or was fearful of a proxy 2-rex, but no, he has his own plans. And Moondance does remain kind of a popular map for even, I mean, basically everyone, every race, to do something early on aggressive with. So we have a lot of tank pushes against Protoss in TVP. Protoss, I guess not as keen on abusing the short rush distance in some aspects, but Zerg certainly have done a decent amount of roach openers. Now this is one of the earliest ones you can do, so when I say that Zergs have been doing roach openers, I mean more like towards the mid game, more like 4 or 5 minutes, but this one is certainly a roach rush. Now the Reaper is going to be able to scout this, and that's actually kind of good. So Dark, you know, he saw that it was a forward 2 barracks a couple of seconds ago with the Overlord. He knows what he's up against. Was he expecting to go up against this? And that's why he did the roach rush? I'm not certain. It's possible, though. But I think, personally, the jury's still out on whether or not this roach rush is actually good against this 2 barracks opener. I think that it's not, personally. I think that Byun should be able to do all the necessary things to make sure this isn't good, right? So if Byun scouted it and then went, oh no, and like just tucked himself in at home, he might be worse off. If Byun, for somehow, I don't know, doesn't ever scout it, then obviously he's worse off. But as soon as he scouts it, he can buy a lot of time with grenades. He can actually still get a decent number of units off of 2 barracks, even after producing his add-ons. A reactor takes a long time too, guys. And then he also just builds a bunker, and that's kind of the secret to defending this, is building a bunker. Now this is a greedily positioned bunker. It ensures that he doesn't lose his supply depot, any health in his barracks, or God forbid, the tech lab. Or the reactor would be a little bit of a reach, but it could go down, right? This is supposed to be the hardline stop, but it's kind of greedy, man. Like, yeah, he pulled the SCVs to get the repair, which was one of the problems of putting it out so far, but it still was in a more forward position. It still was a little more vulnerable. At the very least, he could have had a few more units had the bunker been placed here. And while the Ravagers would do their thing breaking down the wall and breaking down his add-ons, he would still have a few more units. And I think he'd lose SCVs, less SCVs, sorry, when he did finally have to pull the SCVs for repair. But this has already gone a little topsy-turvy. Byun probably not expecting such a dedication from the Zerg player is what I'm going to chalk this up to. Thinking, oh, okay, he knows that I know that he knows that I know, you know, that type of thing. And so he won't dedicate all that much. He'll poke, he'll prod, he'll run away and try and macro. But to be fair, Dark was pretty all in just with this entire concept. Anything less than actually busting Byun was not going to be good enough. So, I don't know. I kind of see where Byun might have been coming from if that was indeed part of his thought process, because I have seen this turn into a little bit less of a committal, but I think just the sheer number of units has caused a bit of a problem, but it actually did it. Did it though? 11 SCVs go down, but Dark has not done any droning since he's been doing this attack, and that's part of the reason he has more units, right? So Byun only went down to the same number of workers as Dark. And with 2 CCs still pumping away, he's now ahead by 11 workers again. So apparently, even kind of technically busting Byun, getting into his natural, that also wasn't enough. Dark still needs more, and I think he knows it as well. That's why he's just continuing to commit. Once again, Byun, I think, choosing a more dangerous option. Goes out to try and fight the units. Now, remember, he lost his second barracks, so it hasn't been pumping away all this time. A replacement barracks was made on the top ground, which is fine, but it's only had so much time to build units. And Byun kind of threw that game. That's, if he just didn't move out, I don't see how he was really supposed to lose. But how about that? That is perhaps experimenting a little bit with a new and improved defense. And then this is when you rubber band back and you're like, okay, no, I'm just going to do the normal defense next time. Funny stuff. So the series is tied, and once again, we saw very little of the patch in action. I will say, though, that we did see perhaps more of an important note of the patch than the creep spread, or... That's really it, actually, than the creep spread. And that was the Ravager build time. So the Ravager build time was increased. It was a Zerg nerf. 8.6 to 12.9 seconds, so a little over 4 seconds of a nerf. Did it affect this game? Possibly. Byun technically would have had even more time to defend, since the Ravagers took more time to form. So I think it did affect this game, just not enough for Byun to win easy peasy. So, hey, we at least saw that. I don't think this is really what they had in mind necessarily when they went for that nerf. I think it was definitely more about a Protoss timing attack against a slightly underprepared Zerg, but it also impacts these rushes. So that's interesting. Let's head to game 3. Game number 3 is going to be on Data C. In the top right, it is Dark. Bottom left, it is Byun. Byun, I will hold strong in this position. I think was in a favorable position. He needed to play it out correctly, though. And what he did initially was play it a little bit too underdefended, a little bit too greedy. But it was apparently okay, because he still was massively ahead in the economy. But then abso-freaking-lutely made the mistake of playing too aggressive after that bunker positioning thing. Bunker position didn't end up actually putting him in a bad position at all, apparently. It made it a little bit sketchier, but definitely didn't kill him. But moving out to engage did kill him. Now, he might have thought that Dark was droning up and he was just going to go and kill the guy, which is possible. But he didn't know what he was getting into. So a little bit of scouting beforehand could have saved him a whole lot of grief, could have made this an easier series for him, but now it is tied 1-1, and Dark is going to go for well-continued cheese. So last game was really started by him. A forward-placed 2 racks is not cheesy. It's an opener. But a proxy hatch is definitely cheesy. It's pretty far away, right? It is going to be able to get those roaches and lings on the other side of the map pretty quickly. Creep spread's also going to accumulate really quickly, and this is something that people have pointed out. It is not happening too often. It's definitely not in meta, but technically the creep change to the hatchery does benefit a proxy hatch. So creep spread interval was decreased, so how long it takes for the creep to push out was buffed. And then the sight range increased as well. So it immediately sees up to 12 instead of initially 10. So that's also pretty good, right? So it's mostly a thing made for defenses against proxy raxes. But technically, it does help this. I mean, really emphasizing technically because it's like, is that going to change how effective this is? No, probably. Definitely not. What really determines how effective this is whether or not the Terran scouts it. Now, Reaper is heading across the map, but that's going to see it as the action starts. He pulls back. He did go close enough to see that, in fact, there was no hatchery. So he knows, basically, there's 2 options. He's either being roach all-in'd, which he is checking, or he's being roach all-in'd and proxy hatched. Like, it just, basically he's being roach all-in'd. So that is indeed true. What he might be figuring out as well as he kind of, puts the puzzle pieces together is that there must be a hatchery somewhere. Like, this wasn't that quick. So he should know. And he probably did a lot faster than I could even explain. And that's why he was so quick to canceling the command center, realizing, I think even if it was a across the pond roach rush, it still would have been very difficult to hold on to that. That's certainly if it's proxied. So Byun has to restart the command center, but it is the price you have to pay to properly defend. Places his factory up in the top of his base, which I think was less a response to this and more just his initial plan. He was probably going to go into one of his cheeky medevac drop push thingies, but now it is going to be used to defend. The good news is he really did scout this so fast that there is no confusion over whether or not you transfer to reactor, which again I don't think he was planning on doing, but usually that's what a Terran would be doing, is trying to build a reactor and then swap it off. You just immediately go to the tech lab of the factory once you realize you're being roach rushed. And a Cyclone pretty much does the trick. You gotta accept the loss of the supply depots, but if you can buy the time to get to a Cyclone, then the supply depots did their job. And with the bunker still intact on the high ground as well, we know that Byun is A-okay. Now, Dark's kind of in a weird position, because while you can sometimes finagle your way out of this position as a Zerg, you didn't actually do all that much damage to the Terran. When your hatchery is back at home, it's really difficult to say that you can do that when you've proxied your hatchery. And as much as we love the idea of him starting to actually mine from this space, it's not really what's going to happen. He probably accidentally made the drone, or might have been thinking about making a structure with it, but yeah, it doesn't look too useful now. So one cyclone is not the end all be all, especially if they are continuing to commit, and with it being proxy, you'd expect a bigger committal. With it being dark, you'd expect a bigger committal after that last game where you just commit. So don't just depend on a cyclone. Definitely don't salvage your bunker. Now that we got a tank as well. Oh, jeez. Let's save the cyclone. Got a Ravager. Now we have the tank out and properly placed as well. We will have total safety for the high ground. The only issue, again, would be, am I over-defending? Is the Zerg player actually getting ahead? But with the proxy hatch, it just seems very unlikely that that's the case. The Reaper was there to check for any attempt to actually build a hatchery. It also saw the reinforcements coming, so that's the third confirmation on it being super dedicated. So that means you kind of have to stay the course here. Focus on mechanics, really. So don't over-defend by only building units. But also more importantly, don't mess up on your mechanics in general. Don't forget to add on your barracks. Don't forget to move on to the rest of the game. That was so confusing. I saw something explode, but the health bar was still intact. So freaking rocks. Anyways. 3 tanks, gonna slowly siege up forward. Creep spread has also been nerfed. It takes a few more seconds to get that cooldown, so you can spread more creep, and its sight has been reduced a little bit too. But I don't really think it's enough. Anyways. Technically, all things that have benefited a proxy hatch. So Dark might be kind of happy with this change. Dark is still behind 5 workers. He's still going to be up against 2 mules, and he still does not have an actual natural hatchery. He did drone a little bit on the proxy, so I mean, I guess there really wasn't any other choice. When it was very clear that even recommitting to this wouldn't work out, I guess there really is nothing else you can do. You just are like, I guess I'll mine. But this is clearly going terribly. 5 rounds at this point have been lost. Didn't even kill that tank. And even the Marine count's feisty, man. Yeah, even without the tanks to help out, that was feisty. Again, not killing the tank, gonna lose the queen, so the creep spread will finally stop. Creep spread that was gonna stop the command center from landing, starting to recede. And Byun most likely can go across the map. Now, it's always tricky, and you can't really blame Terrans when they decide not to run across the map. There's always that thing in the back of your head that's like, okay, am I misidentifying how this has gone? But it seems pretty clear, especially when they tap out, that you can, in fact, just win with the current army that you have. So, GG. Yeah, we saw the proxy hatch in action. We saw something that directly has balance affecting it, balance changes affecting it, but clearly not in a way that really made it that much better. At the end of the day, it still relies on being maybe unscouted, but then more likely unprepared for, just general Terran kerfuffle dropping the ball type situation. And Byun did not drop the ball. So, GG. Byun now up 2-1. Stargazers will be map number 4. Top left it is Dark. Top right it is Byun. Where you going, boy? Where you going? Byun has been opening up 2 racks on the front. 2 out of 3 games. Tried to play a nice normal game in game 3 and was denied. And now we have an actual proxy racks. Many of, well, Dark's... You know what? I'm actually not sure what happens if there's a proxy hatch versus a 2 racks. I've had it happen to me, but I'm bad. And I do lose if I'm 2 racksing a proxy hatcher, but I'm bad. But it's not happening. Anyways, I was going to say that Dark might have actually gotten a kind of build order win with some of his builds if he did them in this game. But I'm not sure about the proxy hatch. I am pretty sure about the pool first and the roaches. If he was going pool first and the roaches, he would just almost build order win, basically. But he's not. What he is, well, am I speaking too soon? He is going gas pool. This is going to work out really well against someone proxy raxing. So Byun Maybe thinking, okay, this guy, you know, eventually has to stop doing this. Apparently not. Apparently Dark will continue being aggressive in the early game. In this case, it's not, that's not the Roach Rush, not being super aggressive. Well, it could be. No, it's not. No. Never mind. Anyways, and, what was my point? He's not doing the Roach Rush. He is still gonna have Lings out earlier. And that could still be problems. His speed is gonna be pretty feisty. But one, you know, since Byun basically figures it out with its Urax, going like, oh, it's a late Hatchery. Oh, what's happening? He can always just go for high ground structures. So, I mean, Dark having faster speed, I'm pretty sure it's not going to impact this game. Byun is still going to try and do some type of rush here, because even though the pool is earlier, it's not like you just instantly, bam, have 10 Lings that can stop this. So the bunker will finish, the Marines will get in it, more Marines will come into it, and Dark is still going to be in kind of a weird position because he just needs a certain number of Lings to actually beat back the bunker. So he's going to add on the Roachborn, which I think is just, it's actually just the only choice at this point. Had he pulled drones to stop the bunker and had his Lings pop, I think that does it. But now, you know, the way that it worked out, it just is awkward. It just was Dark wanting to kind of get the 2 Lings across the map and say hi to the command center, follow up with some faster speedlings perhaps, and kind of get control over the tempo. Instead, a bunker said hi, and he didn't respond to the bunker. And it's not like you can have any other responses with your Hatchery not having creep out. The only thing you are left with is a Roach response. Turns out very awkward. It basically just turns out very awkward. Yeah. I think if drones are pulled, Lings take care of this, and then maybe take care of the reinforcements. Yeah, Dark would have gotten his Hatchery up. It would have been a game at the very least. But now it's just... Now it's very clear to Byun what's happening, right? As soon as there wasn't really a lot of contest over that low ground, it's pretty clear as to what the option of the Zerg is going to be. It's going to be Roaches. And then just basically having a lot of static defense here is really annoying to the Roach player. They have to spend so much time busting out very, very slowly that Byun will guaranteed have factory units. And it doesn't take very many to start defending against the very limited number of units that a Zerg player has. You're right, there was no hatch cancel. That's well, that's a bummer then as well, isn't it? That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Dark in a truly terrible position. Even if he broke out at this point, again, the factory is done. Has been swapped over. Maybe Byun wasn't quite sure what it was yet, but once they saw the Ravagers, figured it out. Right. There is a back base on Stargazers, one you have to mine out, and the mine's out pretty quickly too, but not canceling the Hatchery, losing all that cash, and then not already kind of getting on it. You know, if he had seen that, not reacted to it, and said, you know what, fine, whatever, you get it, you have it. I don't even care anymore, and was already mining out this base. I think that could have worked out, but yeah, he wasn't doing that. He is going to commit to the bits. He's going to commit to being the cheesy Zerg. And Byun is already defended. So, seems like it's going to be a pretty quick and easy best of 5, guys. Unless some miracle happens. Byun's tank is far enough back not to be corrosive biled. The bunker can be once the Overlord's in position. But, we also have a 2-1 production setup, which is probably going to pump out enough units that even if the wall is broken, it won't be good enough. And it looks like Byun also, well, figures it would be broken, so I guess lowering supply doesn't really matter. And here we go. Dark's only attempt to win this game. Takes out 1 tank, will take out the bunker, but will not kill the 2nd tank. Perhaps if he had killed the 2nd tank, a couple of Lings nibbled on it without Byun noticing. 3 Ravagers. No, probably still won't beat even that number of Marines. Nope, never mind. Maybe if they'd fully snuck in and could have microed, I guess. But then an SCV pool would have been very effective. No, nope. Trying to think of all the ways that Dark could have And the answer is he could not have. That is basically game. I'm not surprised that Dark's trying to play this one out. Use all the creep spread. It's like a pretty done deal. Byun's been ahead in workers this entire game, I think. This entire game, yeah. And it's certainly ahead now by 13 with 2 mules being slapped down. That's more like 22 workers ahead. That's a lot. That's a lot. It would be one of the greatest comebacks in StarCraft history if Dark were to come back at all. If this had been kind of an equivalent loss later in the game, there might have been some wiggle room. Basically, equivalent loss being, I don't know how many drones at like minute 8 or 9. The wiggle room possibly could have been spellcasters. You know, the old Wombo combo, Ravager Fungal. But we're nowhere near that. So at this point, it's really a numbers game. And especially because it is a Ravager army. So Banelings also add a little bit of a comeback mechanic. Splash basically adds a comeback mechanic. But Ravagers are really easy to size up. And while they technically have Splash, it's very easy to dodge. So it's not punishing. You know, the Terran player can say, oh, that's all you have, and stim in and not be punished. If this was 9 Banelings, they'd actually have to take that seriously for a second. They'd still win, of course, but they'd have to be like, oh, hold on, let me deal with this first. So I assume that when Byun has stim, combat shields, medevacs, and all the tanks that he's been building, he pushes out. I assume he will win this game. Quick, think of all the patch changes that can actually help Dark here. I'm thinking. Not come up with anything. Hey, oh wait, no, that hatchery was not done. I was gonna say the broodlings were shown here, but they weren't actually. Broodlings don't last as long as they used to. Speedy Hydras suddenly win the game. Nope. Maybe if he gets Ultras. First attack from Byun is not going to be a real push out. It's going to be just a drop, which is very much possible for Dark to hold off against. You know, one of the best ways to do so is to find it before it unloads, right? By the time it unloads, they'll have the units in position. So this is only half or less of Byun's army, right? Something that Dark can handle. Dark is just diving towards the Wombo combo. Absolutely diving. I mean, this is like the action hero trying to dive behind cover that's like 2 feet away, except it's more like it's 10 feet away, and he just kind of lands on his face. It's like what you did try. It's that type of dive. Off of, at the time, I believe it was 50 drones when it completed. So when it was making, it was at what, like 40 drones? It is absolutely the best comeback tool that a Zerg player is going to have, for sure. And Dark certainly knows how to abuse good old Roach Ravager Infestor. And where he did not drone to begin with, he might be able to make up with droning later on. If Byun really is truly too scared to go for a main big push. If he does, the Infestors can maybe even buy a little bit of time at the very least. And if we're playing the absolute most perfect Zerg game possible, perhaps the order of operations chosen here means that come minute 13, Dark does have 70 drones, does have a 4th base, and does have at least somewhat upgraded Roach Ravager Infestor. And if he can get that composition with a 160-ish supply, and that 160 is mostly Ravagers too, then that can do a lot of time buying. A freak ton. Still very expensive though. Wow, sub 60 drones and going up to a hive as well. He's gonna try and actually go for those ultras. I kind of threw that out as a a bit of a joke. I didn't think you'd get there, but if he goes into ultras, little skinny ultras, and gets a perfect fungal, the world as we know it might change. Oh. Byun still has such a great position, just to be clear. He's getting a 4th command center on location. He's currently getting 4 Marauders at a time because he's already up to 8 barracks. There's a lot of firepower in Byun's army. Dark has been able to keep the supplies looking relatively even, but we know as far as the economy goes, it's really not even at all. And we know as the actual supply goes, it's heavily inflated. It's kind of balanced by the spellcasting portion of it, but it is still heavily inflated. So the spellcasting really has a lot to fill in here. Oh, he's gonna go lurkers. He's going lurkers. Okay, all right. Yeah, I think I respect that more of as a bit of a comeback unit than ultras. Either way, both are going to be vulnerable if Byun's ready to go into Ghost, which Byun effectively is. Just hasn't done it yet. He could easily add on to Ghost Academy, for surezies. Is going to go ahead and just power up with a lot of units as fast as possible, at least relatively so. And probably just try and clobber Dark to death. And until those lurkers are in higher numbers and well-positioned, there's really no reason not to. It's when the lurker numbers get a little insane, and they're starting to just, like, draw a line in the sand every which way that you look that makes you wish you went Ghosts. But Byun loses the drop in the main base. Dark is dealing with a decent push, but he's actually gotten enough of an army. Basically on sub-60 drones the entire time. I think at some point he was over it, but now he's under it again, so. And this is apparently what the best Zerg players can do. A good fungal, starting things off, coming around from multiple directions, Ling jumping on top of those tanks. But they have gotten a couple of shots, so they haven't been useless. The rest of the bio was taking out a lot of Ravagers, but fungal Ravager seems to be doing the trick. Seems to be. Byun's forced to entirely retreat. He was so comfortable getting that 4th base on location. He even got an orbital. All right, yeah. And I was also getting a 5th. 2-2 is done for both parties, and 3-3 is started actually for Dark. Byun's only afforded the +3 attack. Lurker Den is on the way. First and foremost, Dark had to prepare for the defense, which he did, and he is still alive. But for how long? He also was accruing a bit of a bank, but seems to be having a larva problem more than anything else right now. Actually, that's exactly what his problem is. He's starting to wear a little bit thin on the protection of the Ravagers as well. So you definitely need something on the front lines. The fungal will cover it to a certain degree, but not entirely, and we're starting to run the fungals anyways. There is one fungal locked and loaded, and that is it. So Byun with the rally push across the map might have kind of just physically pushed the wall back. I think that is still ultimately his plan, but he has the Ghost Academy at least done now for a base. I mean, kind of a backup plan. He could also get a couple of Ghosts to EMP, and now their default EMP is a little bit better, but now they don't have Shockwave, so their later on EMP is worse, which I think would be totally fine for the situation. Yeah, he's gonna get Ghosts. It's gonna help out no matter what. They're gonna EMP, they're gonna snipe at this point in time. They're gonna snipe those really important units like the Lurker, which are finally on the way. Hatchery goes down on the left side as a push continues to the top side. Dark, I know he has a decent armor supply, but it doesn't really look that way. Lurker's finally finished and add a little bit to the physical appearance now. I'm like, okay, that's 112 armor supply. And Byun is not going to get the easy-peasy game that I was certainly expecting. I don't know about him. It's been a bit more of a struggle than Terran would hope so. You know, this could have easily snowballed out of control if Byun was a little bit more haphazard with some things. Perhaps had he pushed when he should have stayed at home. This actually is Byun, or Dark favored, or vice versa. Stayed at home when he should have pushed, right? But I think he still got it. Ultimately, he's still in a better position. There's really been no control in this game going towards the Zerg. So, creep spread's a bit of an issue, although It's okay in some places. Consistency is going to be an issue. You can do this a lot, and it's a very cost-efficient way of playing, but you can't do it forever. If the other guy is just continuing to expand and pump out unit after unit. I mean, we kind of have like almost like a mech versus Zerg scenario, where Byun is more the Zerg player. So Dark will have to slowly crawl his way out to a 5th base. I guess he could take us as a 5th, so maybe that's not the problem, but he still basically has to do something on the other side of the map, give himself some breathing room, and then I'll really believe in Dark. I mean, I didn't believe him at all after the T-Rex, and then I got like 50% hope once he actually got to Fungals, but I still don't really believe in him. You get a Nidus run on the side of the map, you get a Ling run by on the side of the map, all those things, and there could be a lot more said. But right now, he is going to be bullied by someone as fast and often concise, not always, but often concise player like Byun. And that is exactly what's happening. Even as both their supplies start to dip a little bit, it is Dark who's going to be just worse off. Especially when it comes to the gas at this point, it's going to be a big problem. He's really dependent on those cost-efficient, very high-quality units. High-quality units, often the most expensive units, right? So, gas, usually hand-in-hand with expensive. And he's just not going to have a lot of that. Minerals are also going to eventually run out, but that's less of his issue. He has prioritized gas with his composition, which, more power to him. It's exactly right. But he will mine out eventually. He's going to try and reach towards a 5th, but if Byun just continues on the left-right style of play, that won't last very long. Byun's actually taking a little bit of a chill pill. He's got an army forming, but not heading. Nidus Worm is in play. I guess I did notice that in the production tab earlier, but I wasn't sure if he was actually going to get a Nidus Worm. And how about that? He gets a Nidus Worm. This is not the end game. This is not suddenly, oh, okay, I guess GG, Dark wins, because Byun does have ghosts. But what it does, it forces Byun to stay at home a little bit. I think Dark should just retreat, though. Dark not retreating, I guess, seeing the line of bio running down that ramp, thought there might be some real use in keeping his lurkers there. I don't know. I could see the thought process, but ultimately Byun did have too many of the right units, really. And, you know, it was also a bit of a concave at the very least. It wasn't just units coming down this portion of the ramp. That I think Dark threw away too many expensive units that he can't replace, but Byun can. That was all of his lurkers? It might have been, but now 6 are on the field again. So, we still got lurkers, but not a lot. Ghosts are back in play. 5th base is up and running for Dark. Lickety Split getting those gas geysers and even setting up another attempt to hit Byun on his side of the map. No planetaries in sight for our Terran player, who felt that they were so in control of this game, they didn't need one. And they're right, basically. But imagine if the army did not see that coming. Imagine if lurkers could burrow move. That's terrible. Don't imagine that. But that would have been nasty surprise there. Seeing as it wasn't a planetary, Dark might try to emphasize a little bit of a Ling run by at the very least. But we'll see if he can afford to send the Lings across the map. And if they really do all that much damage. Hydras skipped all their upgrades for an extended period of time, which makes a lot of sense. Now finishing up their upgrades. They do not see adrenal glands, which also makes sense. Dark really had to pick and choose what units he was getting in the late game. And now it looks like he has done too little on the other side of the map to try and play this game out. Eventually, the 2 racks opener got to him, but holy hell, he would not go down without a fight. He had a pretty abysmal start to a 2 racks. Almost as bad as you can get. And the follow-up wasn't any better. And he still played this out 20 minutes, guys. Absolute monster, but Byun will be taking this 3-1. Another open cup in his pocket, NA Korea, I'm not sure which one, but the guy is starting to build up his victories yet again. A little bit more reminiscent of his time dominating the Alim Leagues back in 2016 when the Legacy of the Void came out. That's when he returned to StarCraft after this hiatus, and it wasn't his military. He's military later. He just kind of disappeared for a little while. Came back, was the only Terran able to take on the super overpowered Ultras at the time, and just got back to back Alima Leagues. I mean, something like 25 in a row or something. It was crazy. And here we are 6 years later. That wasn't a good sentence. I don't like that one. But still, and Byun is once again back at it, winning these Open Cups. Pretty baller guy. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So let me know if you thought the patch did affect any of these games in a significant way. I thought they were basically all insignificant, but maybe you disagree. And I'll see you guys later for more StarCraft. Bye-bye.